knows too much.
I love spy movies, especially when they reveal true facts and tradecraft. For a long time, my favorite in the genre was The Manchurian Candidate, which introduced both martial arts and mind control to America. Unfortunately, Hollywood did a terrible remake a few years ago. The book, by Richard Condon, however, is a masterpiece, just like the original film. A few years ago, Roman Polanski did an excellent job with The Ghost Rider, capturing the fog of paranoia surrounding a deep political event. Such fog can be manufactured to conceal controllers of a managed confrontation. Carlos, about Ilias Sanchez, is another great spy miniseries that could have been better if the director had been allowed to keep his original soundtrack by the Feelies, but unfortunately the band didn't want their music so closely identified with a terrorist. One of my all-time favorites, however, is Munich, directed by Steven Spielberg, based on the life of Juval Aviv, an Israeli soldier put in charge of an assassination squad to avenge the deaths of Israeli athletes killed by the Black September terrorists during the 1972 Summer Olympics. There were probably 3 such squads actually created, and for years they've remained one of Israel's most closely guarded secrets. As the story unravels, however, the assassination team begins to suspect they are eliminating moderate leaders of the Palestinian movement to make way for more violent extremists to take their place. Meanwhile, the real instigator of the bloody Munich operation was being hidden and protected by the CIA. The most revealing detail from the film is the existence of a network in Europe that provides weapons, fake IDs, and safe houses to terrorists for a fee. This network can also clean up any mess left behind after an assassination. Although the network works with any terrorist, left or right wing, they refuse to deal directly with any government agency of any country. After watching the movie and reading the book, I could not help but surmise this network was in fact Operation Gladio, the stay-behind secret army set up by NATO in the event that socialism might spread throughout Europe. Apparently, Gladio financed false flag terror operations all around Europe to discredit the left wing. Gladio was revealed by the Italian Prime Minister in 1990 in an attempt to do damage control on the Propaganda Do scandal. When I discovered Aviv's security company, Interfor, was based in New York City, I called his office to see if I could arrange an interview. Aside from the crucial Gladio question, I also planned to query him regarding Michael Harari, who had led a team just like Aviv's. Harari later surfaced in the Iran-Contra scandal, and I thought Aviv might have some interesting background on Harari's alleged involvement in money laundering with Michael Noriega. Much to my surprise, Aviv agreed to do a 1-hour interview. After High Times expressed no interest, I posted the highlights on my YouTube page. The first episode was titled Juval Aviv is the Real Zohan. Aviv would neither confirm nor deny that Operation Gladio was the identity of the terror network. He admitted that contrary to the impression left by the movie, he remains a dedicated supporter of Israel who would fly to its defense if necessary. He admitted explosives probably contributed to the fall of the Twin Towers, but stated they could have been illegally stockpiled in a federal office, which would require a cover-up of their existence. He didn't want to discuss the Israeli art students, but admitted the Mossad was watching most of the 9/11 terrorists, and they provided information on them to the CIA and FBI. He feels that info was not acted upon out of neglect, but also admits there could have been a deeper motivation. He cringed when asked if Harari was the greatest Mossad agent of all time, and I got the impression he and Harari might be contesting for that honor. After I turned off the camera and got ready to leave, he dropped a number of bombshells, first telling me he was one of the last people to speak with Danny Casolaro. Danny was talking to Lester Coleman investigating Pan Am 103, said Aviv, who then added, I tried to talk about the JFK assassination with Bill Clinton, but he didn't want to discuss it. It felt like Aviv was letting me know he had not given up the store in my 1-hour grilling and still had plenty of juicy conspiracy stories left in reserve. Later, I discovered Aviv had been hired by Juval Maxwell to find out what had happened to her father. Certainly an expensive investigation that may have been partially funded by her child-abusing sugar daddy, Jeffrey Epstein. Using his contacts in the Mossad, Aviv was able to piece the story together. After Maxwell's financial house of cards began collapsing, he lost all contact with reality and began ordering Israel to give him a few billion to bail him out. Maxwell's judgment was growing so increasingly erratic, he was labeled a threat to Israel's national security, especially since he'd worked on so many intel ops and had connections into British, Soviet, and American intelligence. Among his more important ops was the sale of a pirated software called Promise, which had been the earliest attempt to merge artificial intelligence and data collection. Promise transformed tracking of terrorists by connecting every possible online platform. Sneakily, a back door had been secretly installed so they could follow along with any investigations. Imagine their delight when dozens of countries installed Promise, including some in the Arab world. And when Operation Desert Storm began, the Mossad assisted greatly through their backdoor surveillance. Once Maxwell began making demands he might squeal and embarrass Israel if not treated properly, a four-man hit team began assembling. Maxwell was told he would get the bailout, but needed to motor his mega yacht, the Lady Ghislaine, to the Canary Islands and await further instructions. Maxwell probably thought the bailout would arrive in the form of gold he'd helped transfer out of Russia immediately after the fall of communism. Meanwhile, the Frog team flew in, posing as tourists with fishing poles, rented a boat, and began shadowing the Lady Ghislaine. One night, two frogmen slipped on board, injected Maxwell with an air bubble, and tossed him overboard. Maxwell was not immediately missed, and the body not found for days, and cause of death listed as accidental drowning, after a member of the crew explained he liked to urinate overboard at night and must have fallen overboard while doing so.
Before my time is